The Kim Soo Hyun scandal was part of a larger pattern of celebrity scandals that have rocked the entertainment industry in recent years. From K-pop idols to actors, the pressure to maintain a perfect public image is relentless, and when that image is shattered, the consequences can be severe. In the past, fans were more willing to forgive their idols for mistakes, believing that everyone had their flaws. But in the age of social media and instant access to information, the demands for accountability have increased. The public is no longer content with the illusion of perfection. They want to see the real person behind the persona, and when that person falls short, the backlash is swift. The rise of social media has played a key role in this shift. With platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and Weibo, fans have direct access to their idols, allowing them to engage with them in real time. But this also means that every misstep, every mistake, is more visible than ever before. The pressure to maintain a flawless image is greater than it has ever been, and the consequences of failing to do so are immediate. For Kim Soo Hyun, this meant that the scandal was not just a personal issue, it was a public one. His every move was scrutinized, his every word analyzed, and his every action held up to the harshest of standards. The transparency that social media offers also exposes the darkest corners of fame, where personal lives intersect with public expectations. But perhaps the most insidious aspect of this transparency is the way it dehumanizes celebrities. In the quest for authenticity, we have lost sight of the fact that celebrities are people, not commodities. We demand that they be real, that they show us their flaws, their vulnerabilities, and their true selves. But when they do, we often reject them for not meeting the impossible standards we have set for them. The Kim Soo Hyun scandal, like so many before it, forced us to confront the uncomfortable truth about our relationship with celebrities. We elevate them to godlike status, only to tear them down when they inevitably fall short of our expectations. And in doing so, we strip away their humanity. So, where does Kim Soo Hyun go from here? Can he ever recover from the damage done by the scandal? Will his career ever return to the heights it once reached? Or has the public's trust been permanently broken? In many ways, the answer to these questions lies not just in Kim Soo Hyun's actions, but in how we, as a society, choose to engage with celebrity culture moving forward. Will we continue to demand perfection from those we idolize? Or will we allow them the space to be imperfect, to be human? As the public's relationship with Kim Soo Hyun evolves, so too must our understanding of what it means to be a fan. It's no longer enough to simply admire someone from afar. We must also recognize that idols, like all of us, are flawed individuals. And perhaps, in doing so, we can begin to shift the way we view fame and celebrity. Meanwhile, in corporate boardrooms across Seoul, another drama was unfolding, one less visible to the public, but equally critical to Kim Soo Hyun's fate: the corporate gamble. Gold medalist, the agency representing Kim Soo Hyun, faced an impossible dilemma. Traditional PR wisdom dictated distancing from a scandal-tainted figure, severing ties to preserve brand integrity. Yet gold medalist did the unthinkable. They stood by him. It was not just an emotional choice, it was a calculated risk, a bold bet placed on loyalty and long-term strategy over short-term damage control. In the cold calculus of business, this was akin to standing in a burning building, hoping that, by sheer force of will, the flames would die down. Gold medalists' executives likely gathered in emergency meetings, weighing financial projections against public sentiment metrics, contract penalties against loyalty dividends. For an agency, backing a scandalized actor could mean blacklisting by advertisers, cancelled drama deals, and millions lost in investments. But walking away from Kim Soo Hyun would also mean surrendering one of Korea's last bankable superstars at a time when the industry was desperate for stability. In a market saturated with younger, untested talents and riddled with controversies, Kim Soo Hyun still held immense residual power. He was a proven product. The agency's decision to stand firm turned a simple scandal into a case study in entertainment politics. In doing so, gold medalist effectively challenged the unspoken rule of Korean celebrity management that stars are disposable the moment they become liabilities. They chose to gamble on rebuilding Kim Soo Hyun's brand rather than abandoning it, signaling a potential shift in how agencies might navigate scandals moving forward. It was a move laden with risk, but also with opportunity. If they succeeded, gold medalist would not only salvage Kim Soo Hyun's career, they would reshape the rules of the game itself. However, their gamble hinged on one crucial, unpredictable factor: the public. Would audiences be willing to forgive? Would advertisers eventually return? Would broadcasters, ever sensitive to public backlash, take the chance of casting him again? To answer those questions, one had to understand the shifting sands of public opinion in South Korea, a nation where scandal fatigue and shifting generational values were quietly rewriting the old playbook of celebrity accountability. In the past, a scandal often spelled the end for a celebrity, particularly if it clashed with the rigid moral standards expected by society. But younger audiences, raised in the digital era, increasingly demonstrated a more nuanced view of celebrity flaws. They understood, perhaps better than previous generations, that public figures are human and fallible. And critically, they were beginning to differentiate between types of scandals, reserving harsher judgment for serious crimes or abuses, while showing more empathy for personal failings. Gold medalist was betting on this evolving landscape. They were wagering that Kim Soo Hyun's scandal, while damaging, did not cross the invisible moral line that triggers irreversible exile in Korean society. They were betting that, with time, the scandal would become background noise, a blip in an otherwise sterling career. But there was no guarantee. As media headlines continued to dissect every development, gold medalist carefully crafted a strategy of controlled visibility. Kim Soo Hyun was neither hidden nor aggressively pushed into the public eye. Instead, he was positioned in a liminal space, visible enough to signal resilience, but low profile enough to avoid inflaming controversy. Carefully selected appearances, strategic social media posts, and whispered rumors of upcoming projects were part of a meticulously orchestrated comeback plan. It was a delicate dance between memory and forgetting, contrition and confidence. And in many ways, it was a referendum not just on Kim Soo Hyun, but on the future of Korean entertainment management itself. Could loyalty, once considered a liability, become a marketable asset? Could standing by a scandalized star be reframed not as stubbornness, but as moral fortitude? If gold medalist succeeded, it would challenge the orthodoxy that agencies must always prioritize brand over individual. It would suggest a new paradigm, one where loyalty, resilience, and second chances could be commodities just as powerful as spotless reputations. But if they failed, it would reaffirm the harsh Darwinism of the entertainment industry. Adapt or die, protect the brand at all costs, and never bet on redemption. For now, all eyes remained on Kim Soo Hyun and the team that dared to stand beside him in the storm. And somewhere in the distance, the clock kept ticking, counting down to the moment when the public would decide whether to forgive, to forget, or to move on without him. Behind the polished smiles of ad executives and drama producers, another reality simmered, one of whispered meetings, nervous calculations, and contracts either quietly shredded or cautiously renegotiated. Advertisers were the first to react. In South Korea, where public image is everything, brands move swiftly at the faintest whiff of scandal. Within days of the news breaking, internal discussions began. Should they pull Kim Soo Hyun's commercials? Suspend campaigns? Demand contract penalties? Each brand had to navigate its own labyrinth of public perception. Some, particularly family-oriented or youth-targeted brands, chose to temporarily halt advertisements featuring him, playing it safe until the social temperature could be better gauged. Others adopted a wait-and-see approach, wary of overreacting in a way that might alienate Kim Soo Hyun's still considerable fanbase. For advertisers, the calculus was brutal. Public anger, boycotts, lost revenue. Public forgiveness, premature withdrawal, missed opportunity. In a hyper-competitive market, the wrong call could spell disaster. Some brands chose a middle path. They quietly pulled commercials without announcing it, hoping the public wouldn't notice, while leaving the door open for reinstatement if things calmed down. It was reputation management as damage limitation, subtle, deniable, and ruthlessly pragmatic. Broadcasters, too, faced agonizing decisions. Casting a scandal-embroiled star could invite public backlash and regulatory scrutiny, yet abandoning a project could mean massive financial losses. For dramas already in pre-production or negotiation stages with Kim Soo Hyun attached, meetings grew tense and urgent. Production committees held emergency sessions. Legal teams combed through contracts searching for morality clauses that could allow termination without penalty. Insurance providers began asking hard questions about coverage for projects with him on board. At the same time, counter-arguments began to surface. Was the scandal really serious enough to justify scrapping a major project? Was there truly public fury, or just a noisy minority amplified by social media algorithms? Some network insiders pointed to past scandals where celebrities, after a period of reflection and low profile, had successfully returned, sometimes even stronger than before. In hushed conversations over late-night dinners and private messaging apps, a quiet consensus began to form. If Kim Soo Hyun could weather the initial storm without fresh revelations or a full-scale public revolt, there was still a path forward. But it would require time, careful PR choreography, and most of all, the right project. A comeback vehicle positioned not as an arrogant return, but as a humble re-entry into public life. And so a holding pattern emerged. No dramatic cancellations, no public statements of support or condemnation, quiet distancing coupled with private contingency planning. For now, no bridges would be burned, no final decisions would be made. Everyone, from advertisers to producers to broadcasters, was waiting for the same thing, a sign. Would public opinion harden into lasting resentment? Or would time, that ancient salve of scandals, work its slow magic once again? Meanwhile, in the court of public opinion, the first cracks in the outrage began to show. Online, the noise never stopped, but underneath the fury, patterns began to shift. At first, outrage dominated. Angry hashtags trended, comment sections filled with condemnation. Influencers, eager for clicks and moral capital, fanned the flames with emotional posts denouncing betrayal, disappointment, and broken trust. But as the days wore on, cracks in the monolith of public anger appeared. Some fans, particularly longtime supporters of Kim Soo Hyun, began pushing back. They posted threads dissecting the scandal, questioning inconsistencies, or calling for forgiveness. Others urged caution. Wait for the full story, they pleaded. Don't destroy a career overnight. These voices, at first drowned out, slowly gained volume. On forums like DC Inside and The Coup, spirited debates erupted. Was the scandal truly career-ending? Was it a private matter blown out of proportion? Were the media and netizens guilty of premature judgment, a modern-day witch hunt? Offline, the fragmentation was even more pronounced. In casual conversations, at coffee shops, in hair salons, at family dinners, ordinary Koreans voiced more nuanced views. Some shook their heads in disappointment, unwilling to make excuses. Others expressed exhaustion. Another scandal? Who cares? A few even spoke with sympathy. He's only human. In the fast-moving world of celebrity scandal, attention spans were short and emotions mercurial. Public sentiment that once seemed monolithic now fractured into a messy, unpredictable landscape. Three camps began to form. The outraged, who believed Kim Soo Hyun must be punished, dropped from brands, and publicly apologize. He loyalists, who defended him, rationalized the events, and attacked the media for unethical reporting. He indifferent, who, fatigued by endless controversies, simply stopped caring. For brands, agencies, and networks trying to read the room, it was a nightmare. The traditional metrics, polls, social media sentiment analysis, trending topics, gave conflicting signals. Because gold medalists' strategy of silence while preparing for the case was causing a void and the polemique. In the absence of a clear narrative, others were filling the void, and time, so often a healer, was now starting to feel like an enemy. Fast forward to today, and it is clear to see that something inside the fandom fractured. It didn't happen with a bang. There was no mass exodus, no fiery declaration of betrayal. It was quieter, more insidious, like a crack in the foundation that, at first, no one notices until the walls start groaning under the weight of disillusionment. It was in the subtle changes, a hesitation before reposting supportive hashtags, a sharper tone in fan debates, a flicker of resentment behind words meant to sound loyal. At first, fans had been defensive, protective, a human shield against a ravenous public. They flooded comment sections with support, created trending hashtags to drown out negativity, and posted old clips of Kim Soo Hyun smiling, laughing, being kind. A digital scrapbook of better memories they desperately wanted the world to remember. These early days were fueled by a collective instinct: protect him at all costs. Not just because he was a celebrity they admired, but because in a way they had built a version of him that felt personal. To attack Kim Soo Hyun was, in some small emotional corner of their minds, to attack a part of themselves. But as days dragged on without a clear response from gold medalist on the progress of the ongoing case, that fierce loyalty began to curdle into something harder, sharper: demand. Patience, after all, is a finite resource, especially when trust feels like a currency that is being spent without replenishment. Fan forums, once echo chambers of unwavering faith, transformed almost overnight into war rooms. Strategies were drawn, alliances were tested, loyalty was no longer assumed. It was interrogated. Threads multiplied by the hour. Where is gold medalist? Are they protecting him or protecting themselves? The question struck at the heart of something deeper than simple disappointment. It suggested a creeping suspicion that perhaps the people entrusted with Kim Soo Hyun's career were prioritizing corporate interests over the man himself. The thought was almost too painful to fully voice, and yet it hung heavy over every conversation. Some fans tried to calm the waters, insisting that silence must mean careful planning, that gold medalist was choosing their words wisely so as not to jeopardize the ongoing case. There were talks of legal strategy, non-disclosure agreements, the complex dance that public relations teams must do when a legal investigation is underway. Hope clung to these rationalizations like a lifeline. But others weren't willing to wait. Not because they had turned against Kim Soo Hyun, because they feared inaction would kill him faster than false rumor ever could. They wanted action, they wanted answers, they wanted ownership, and most of all, they wanted it now. Across the fandom, a new language emerged, one that treated Kim Soo Hyun less like a person and more like a commodity whose value was tied to customer satisfaction. It wasn't framed as cruelty. It was framed as strategy, necessity, a pragmatic shift in thinking in an industry that had taught them the rules of survival. Fans who once spoke of love now spoke of investments, of public relations, of brand integrity. It was a chilling evolution, affection translated into asset management, trust quantified into quarterly projections of public goodwill. Gold medalist, they argued, owed them a full accounting, not just as admirers, but as stakeholders in the carefully crafted image they had helped build and fiercely defended for over a decade. In private group chats, fans exchanged spreadsheets tracking sponsor reactions. Some threads looked like marketing reports: upticks in negative sentiment, sudden drops in positive brand mentions, historical case studies of other celebrities who had either weathered or drowned in scandal. The data was cold, clinical, but underneath it throbbed a raw, almost desperate emotion. Don't let this happen to him. Fix it. Now. They debated legal implications of defamation suits. Some drafted open letters to the agency demanding better communication strategy and damage control. In an unprecedented move, a few fans have started crowdfunding to pay for a lawyer to handle a defamation case against online haters, as if managing a human being's reputation could be outsourced like crisis management for a corporation. It was both inspiring and deeply unsettling. The irony was painful and palpable. Kim Soo Hyun had always been praised for his humanity, the shy smiles, the unpretentious interviews, the groundedness rare among A-list celebrities. His brand, if one could call it that, was built not on scandal or spectacle, but on a genuine sense of connection, decency, and humility. He was a reminder, in an industry often criticized for its artifice, that sincerity could still sell. But when crisis struck, even that humanity was monetized, measured, and marketed. He was no longer just a person. He was a product that needed servicing. And the customers were angry. Somewhere inside gold medalists' offices, the team undoubtedly saw the shift too. Perhaps they held frantic meetings behind closed doors, debating when and how to respond. Perhaps they scanned social media analytics with growing alarm, realizing that silence, once seen as a shield, had mutated into a weapon turning against them. The very people who could have been their greatest allies were beginning to turn, not because they no longer loved him, but because they had been trained by the industry to believe love was transactional. In the ruthless equation of fandom economics, even devotion came with expectations of return on investment. And if that investment wasn't honored, If the brand they had poured their time, money, and hearts into faltered, they were prepared to demand accountability. Not just from gold medalist, but heartbreakingly, from Kim Soo Hyun himself. This consumerization of loyalty wasn't born in a vacuum. It was, in many ways, the inevitable result of how Korean entertainment culture had evolved over the past 2 decades. Agencies meticulously crafted stars not just as artists, but as brands, multi-platform commodities whose value could be quantified in sales figures, television ratings, digital view counts, and international expansion deals. Idols were trained not merely to perform, but to embody aspirational personas, kind, hard-working, pure, relatable, yet unattainably perfect. Fans didn't just admire them, they invested in them, financially, emotionally, psychologically. And like all investors, they learned to expect returns. Merchandise, fan meets, endorsement deals, exclusive content packages, every transaction subtly rewired the relationship from one of admiration to one of ownership. The fans who bought products because Kim Soo Hyun endorsed them were not just consumers, they were shareholders in the sprawling, intangible asset that was Kim Soo Hyun, the public figure. In this landscape, loyalty was a product too. One sold back to fans in limited edition releases and members-only perks. One nourished by carefully curated narratives of authenticity until those narratives were challenged by reality. And now reality had come crashing in. Gold medalist, whether they admitted it publicly or not, stood at a crossroads where every move carried enormous risk. If they responded too soon, they risked making legal missteps that could complicate the ongoing case or unintentionally validate baseless rumors. If they waited too long, they risked alienating the very fan base whose loyalty was the bedrock of Kim Soo Hyun's marketability and ongoing career. There was no good option, only a series of bad ones, each carrying different degrees of fallout. Complicating matters further was the sheer speed at which fan sentiment could shift in the digital age. A single misworded statement, an ill-timed post, even the perceived tone of an apology could spark secondary waves of outrage, turning supporters into critics at a speed no PR team could hope to match. Within this volatile environment, gold medalist's challenge was not just to defend Kim Soo Hyun legally, it was to reaffirm his humanity in a system that increasingly treated him and all celebrities not as people but as products whose worth was measured by metrics. The question was no longer whether they would respond. It was whether they could do so in a way that reclaimed the narrative, that reminded people, especially his most devoted fans, that behind the brand was still a man who laughed awkwardly at press conferences, who admitted in interviews that he still got nervous before big scenes, who built a career not on scandal, but on quiet, consistent excellence. A man, not a commodity. But in the brutal machinery of modern fandom culture, that was perhaps the hardest story to sell. In the end, what this scandal revealed was not simply a battle over truth or rumor, innocence or guilt. It was a mirror. A mirror held up not just to Kim Soo Hyun, not just to gold medalist, but to all of us. It reflected a world where human beings are branded, marketed, consumed, and discarded with equal speed. A world where loyalty is transactional, where affection is conditional, and where even the purest image can be weaponized the moment it no longer serves collective expectations. Kim Soo Hyun, once celebrated for embodying the best qualities of humility, warmth, and grace under pressure, now stood on a precipice not entirely of his own making. Even if he weathered this storm, and he might, the scars would linger, not only on his public image, but on the unseen, unspoken trust between celebrity and fan. Because once loyalty is measured in metrics, once love is negotiated like a contract, it is no longer love at all. It becomes something colder, something that can be bought, sold, and retracted when the market shifts. And if Kim Soo Hyun, beloved, enduring, almost universally respected, could be reduced to a battleground of PR calculations and brand management, what hope did anyone else have? The truth, whatever it ultimately turns out to be, may matter less to the public than the story they choose to believe. In the absence of certainty, people cling to narratives that comfort them, that validate their investment, that excuse their betrayal. In that sense, Kim Soo Hyun's real crime was not moral failure. It was that he dared to be human in an industry and a fandom that had long ago decided humanity was not part of the bargain. And perhaps the saddest part is this: No agency statement, no legal victory, no heartfelt apology or triumphant return can truly fix what has been broken. Because what shattered was not just a career, or a moment, or even a fandom. It was the fragile illusion that love, in the age of celebrity, could still be unconditional. The psychological toll of being a living brand cannot be overstated. Celebrities in crises often suffer from isolation, anxiety, insomnia, and severe depression. And yet, they are asked to perform control, grace, and resolve for the camera. In doing so, they may suppress genuine trauma, delaying or even denying themselves the support and treatment they desperately need. And the stakes here are heartbreakingly real. In Korea, the cost of public shame can be fatal. We've seen beloved actors and idols, Sulli, Jonghyun, Guhara, crumble under the weight of public scrutiny, cyberbullying, and endless performance. The world demands grace even as it throws stones. Kim Soo Hyun has kept an unusually low profile since the scandal broke, which may be the only choice left to him. In a media landscape that demands transparency while rewarding destruction, sometimes silence is the only safe space. And yet, even that silence was interpreted as strategy, not suffering. His humanity became invisible. This isn't just a PR issue, it's a mental health issue. It's a question of dignity and respect. No brand has to relive trauma, but a person does. Kim Soo Hyun is not a logo, he is not a campaign, he is not a talking point. He is a human being navigating a deeply distressing situation. And being human is not a brand defect, it's the only thing that matters. Throughout his career, Kim Soo Hyun has played characters who struggle, who break, who heal. Ironically, real life handed him that very challenge. But unlike in film, there's no script, no editor, no second take. The public expects instant clarity from someone likely battling confusion and grief. Online, phrases like brand dilution or reputation recovery echoed more loudly than any concern for his emotional well-being. In the same breath that his name was trending, his personhood was being erased. In a world that monetizes pain and sensationalizes scandal, recognizing the humanity of someone like Kim Soo Hyun is a radical act of compassion. Let him be human. Let him be messy. Let him grieve, heal, and respond on his own terms, not ours. And maybe that's the real call to action here. To extend humanity towards someone caught in the eye of a media firestorm requires more than passivity. It demands intentional restraint. It means refusing to click on slanderous headlines. It means calling out gossip disguised as journalism. It means holding space for silence and ambiguity in a culture obsessed with instant clarity. Kim Soo Hyun may never speak publicly about this ordeal, and that is his right. His healing doesn't owe us closure. His pain is not our property. In times of scandal, we often speak of damage control, spin, and comebacks. But maybe the real story isn't about controlling damage. Maybe it's about choosing compassion over consumption. Maybe the most radical thing we can do right now is nothing. No hashtags, no demands, no theories. Just space. Just silence. Just the grace to let someone be human. If there's one thing we hope you take away from today's episode, it's this. Behind every trending name, there's a person. Breathing, breaking, healing, away from the spotlight. Let's choose compassion over consumption. And maybe, just maybe, let's learn how to let people be human again. Because in the end, what we save is not just a career or a reputation. What we save is our own capacity for kindness. And in a world that profits from cruelty, kindness is an act of quiet rebellion. At Critical Thinkers, we stand by one thing, truth that doesn't flinch. Because the moment we stop questioning the system, we become the very system we hate. You're tuned into Truth Unfiltered, brought to you by Critical Thinkers, where the truth speaks louder than the mob. Like, share, subscribe, not just to game the algorithm, but to stay awake in a world built to numb you. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.